Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. Now, here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
You know, I got to tell you something. I was critical of Obama debasing the White House. I thought it was disgusting, the low level of vermin that he had in there. I wake up this morning and I see a rap star debasing the Oval Office, banging his hand on the desk, dropping the F word. Do you think that Trump is going to gain votes because he had this lowlife in there? I don't. In fact, I think what this did was alienate the core Christian base of the Trump votership. And you can take that one to the bank. Now, I wake up this morning, and I was pleased to see that Stop Mass Hysteria made it to the Drudge Report. You don't know what a big deal that is. I see also that there's a book by a feminist and a book by a copycat who uses almost everything I do at the on his show. Used to be a liberal with the bow tie. Now he's a big conservative. And I say to myself, that's the way it is. What are you going to do? You can't control the world. Then I ask myself about the cartel. You got a guy like Limbaugh who is so jealous and desperate to maintain his image of himself that he takes sound bites from the feminist and runs them on a show just before mine in order to make sure my book does not rise on the list. Do you have any idea what also goes on? You know, you think that I'm just full of anger and bitterness and I'm making it all up. Do you have any idea how you're being hoodwinked by people who pretend to be fair-minded conservatives, and they're on your side, and they're for the Constitution and the American way? If you had any idea what they do behind the scenes to me and others, by the way, I'm not the only one. Oh, no, I'm not the only one they block. You got Hannity, a high school dropout, who is very, very shrewd, who got very, very far when he was still good-looking, who's desperately afraid of anyone with an education on the conservative side. I know that from the inside. You got Limbaugh, who was once a giant, who is a shadow of his former self, who pretends to be the greatest man on earth, who sucks all of the energy, all of the dollars, all of the money into his pocket and makes believe is this great conservative. Now, you're asking yourself, why am I talking about it? Who else is going to talk about it? You know, we like to criticize the left, don't we? We like to criticize mob rule. We like to criticize the vicious tactics of the left. That's all fair game and well and good. But if you think that the other side is pure and clean and innocent and for America, God, you're wrong. You are so wrong. It's all about greed. It's all about greed, or as it was said before, there's larceny in every man's heart. There's larceny in every man's heart, no matter what they pretend to be. Except for me, of course. I'm the only one without larceny in my heart. You know why? You know why that's actually true? Because I don't need the money. They do. They're all living beyond their means. That's absolutely. If you had any idea how desperate these guys are to pay their bills, you have no idea what they spend to maintain their rapper lifestyles while pretending they're like Joe and Jane American conservative. If you had any idea what it costs to run their lifestyle, you know why they're so desperate. Anyway, I don't want to spend much more time on it. I did that already. Got it out of my system. Welcome to the Savage Nation. So I wake up and there is Kanye West at the same Endeavor desk that I had the honor of sitting at. And there's a part of me that's a little sick because there's something wrong with the picture of having a man who stands for everything that we don't stand for, sitting there with the president. I can't even read the lyrics. Hurry up with my damn massage. Hurry up with my damn menage. Beating up women. Ecstasy, 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 I'm reading the lyrics now of the genius that's sitting here. Ecstasy, 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 And what is he going to get, like 6 votes from this? Who advised him to have this rapper in the White House? Savage warns, stop the mobs or nation will fall. That's what we're going to talk about today. I have a lawyer on, my good friend Dan Horowitz at 12:30. I can't say 12. At the bottom of the hour to tell you what you can do if you're attacked by Antifa or other mobs. Because everyone's asking me, what can we do? The left is out of control. Eric Holder is saying when they go low, kick them. Hillary is saying let's have a civil war. They're all trying to outdo each other in appeasing the left-wing fanatical mobs. Now, of course, what you have to understand is it's coming to your doorstep whether you want it or not. They're at war, and they want to bring the war to your door. Want me to go rap for you? We're at war, and they want to bring the war to your door. I'll rap for you. So you're asking yourself, what are your legal rights to defend yourself? You don't know. Well, okay. Dan Horowitz and I had a discussion this morning about the law on this, and you'll be surprised what you can actually do if they do to you what they did to that man in Portland, Oregon, when these left-wing scum ran after the car and hit his car with pipes. Do you know that you have the right to defend yourself if your car is attacked by a mob? You don't have to sit there and whine and call the police. And you're going to find out what you actually can do to these people. So now I tweeted this morning, Savage warns, stop the mobs or nation will fall. And I gave some of my solutions. One, what are the solutions to stopping left-wing Democrat mob violence? One, pull the nonprofit status of the ACLU and all Soros-funded groups. That's number one. Trump has that authority to authorize the IRS to pull the ACLU's 501c3 status because they violated all of the rules of a 501c3 when they came out against Kavanaugh. He can pull all of the 501c3, which is the nonprofit status, of all the front groups that George Soros funds. And if these mobs are not funded, you're going to pull a lot of the action off the streets. Number two, enact the Espionage Act. Enact the Espionage Act. And if you can prove that any of these leaders, National Lawyers Guild, ACLU, I can name 10 other groups, they're all to be found and stopped. I know, you want me to say it? I'm not allowed to say it. You're upset that I say that my book's name is Stop Mass Hysteria. I'll say it again. Enact the Espionage Act and arrest the leadership if they're violating the Espionage Act. And here's a nice one for you. I've looked very carefully at the videos of the left-wing mobs, and they're filled with illegal aliens who are being brought out to these riots, especially here on the West Coast, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Portland, Seattle. They are filled with non-citizens. Deport any alien caught in mob actions. Arrest them immediately and deport them right over the border. These are all legal tactics, but what you're going to hear from my attorney and your attorney, the attorney of the Savage Nation, Dan Horowitz, will actually make you say, are you kidding? I can do that? Did you hear me? Savage warns, stop the mobs or nation will fall. That's the screaming headline. When you see the former chief law enforcement officer of the United States of America, I've always known what he was. I warned you about Eric Holder from the get-go. I knew what this man was. He said when they go low, kick them. Hillary says you can't be civil with Republicans. In other words, she wants a civil war. That's Hillary Clinton. So let's listen to your friend Eric Holder, who is now a criminal, suggesting criminality and violence. Listen carefully.
They have used the power that they have gotten for all the wrong things. They want to keep themselves in power. They want to cater to the special interests. God. It is time for us as Democrats to be as tough as they are, to be as dedicated as they are, to be as committed as they are. Michelle always says, Michelle Obama, I love her, you know, when they go low, we go high. No. When they go low, we kick them. That's what this new Democratic Party is about.
The new Democrat Party is clearly about violence. And you have a choice. How do you fight back against violence? Now, there are many ways to do it. You can avoid the violence, which is the best method, whether you're a sportsman or not, even if you're in the boxing arena or, let's say martial arts, the first rule is always avoid a fight outside the ring. That's the first rule. My advice to you is avoid situations where you can let the left-wing vermin get near you. But let's say you're out to dinner with your wife, and a waiter is one of those with, let's say, rings on his lips, or those big earrings that look, I don't know, they look like bugs crawled on their ears, hanging off each ear, whatever those symbolize. Big things hanging off the lobes. I don't know what that means. I used to know what a ring on the left ear meant, a ring on the right ear meant something else. Now there are so many rings and things hanging off people's heads, I don't know what they mean anymore. But let's say you get one of those bug jobs with the rings on the lips serving you, and they hear you talking about something that you believe in, MAGA, Trump, Stop Mass Hysteria, whatever it is, you're reading my book. And then they go and they tap their little phones and they get a mob to come in the restaurant and they surround you at your table and start screaming at you. What are your rights? Do you know what they are? You have to run like a coward? Or what if they trail you out of the restaurant, you decide to leave because you don't want to fight? And you get in your car and these bums start banging on your car with pipes as they did to that poor man in Portland, Oregon. What are your rights? Do you know what they are? I don't think you do. Because all I hear are people whining, which is how we're going to stop them. Well, unless you know what your rights are and unless you know what the law is, you're going to run from them. And I'm saying don't run and don't hide. Eric Holder says that the New Democratic Party stands for war and violence. That's what he just said. So he's very clear. At least Eric Holder finally came out from behind the charade of being some nice guy from New York City. He's not a nice guy from New York City. He's always been a thug from the get-go. And now that he has shown himself for what he is, you have an obligation to know what your rights are. And go back to what I said at first so you don't misinterpret Michael Savage. Avoid at all costs confrontation, meaning do not confront these violent mobs. That's what they want. However, if you get into an untenable situation, what are your rights? Well, you'll hear that as the show goes on. The other topics are the main topic, which is stop the mobs or the nation will fall. Right? Have you given a copy of my book to a cop yet? I'm going to just plain ask you, have you, yes or no? And on the third day of publication, I normally do this. Can you please call in with your favorite sentence or paragraph or part of the book? I'll be right back.
Savage.
Welcome back to the Savage Nation. So the question is, with the hysterical girls clawing at the Supreme Court door, the hysterical college boys chasing Ted Cruz from a restaurant, the Antifa thugs chasing a poor old man and calling him Whitey and taunting him on a racial level, committing a hate crime, with a cop sitting by on a motorcycle because the cop has been deballed by the communist mayor of Portland, Oregon. What can you actually do if you are confronted in a restaurant or on the street? You actually have tremendous rights to defend yourself. And I'm going to have Dan Horowitz, lawyer supreme, on this show to take your calls because I think this is the point we're at. If we're hearing Eric Holder saying the New Democrat Party is a party that kicks people, well, you got to know what to do if someone kicks you. It's that simple. Mike on WABC, you have an opinion. Go ahead, please.
Hey, Mike. How are you? Long-time listener, first-time caller. I'm a retired cop in New York City for over 20 years. And believe it or not, yes, they do have rights. The crime that's being committed against them is aggravated harassment at the least. And you have every right to protect yourself against.
Let's say a guy and his wife are sitting in a restaurant and the waiter with the earrings calls his friends and they come over and start harassing him at the table. First of all, the restaurant is liable for not having kept them out. That's number one. But number two, what if they actually start screaming at him and spitting at him at the table? What can you do?
Well, spitting is considered an assault. So at that point, they could do whatever they have to do to protect themselves. Okay? I always lived by when I was a police officer, I lived by a 5-foot rule. You could do whatever you want, say whatever you want within 5 feet of me. Once you break that 5-foot rule, all bets are off, at that point.
All right, so let's say you're out with your wife in a restaurant in New York somewhere, Queens, wherever you are, and somehow they know you're an ex-cop and they want to harass you, and they come scream at you, calling you names, and you say, good, within 5 feet, do what you want. But now they get close to the table and start shouting at you and your wife gets scared. What do you do?
that's an immediate fear of life. At that point, I do what I have to do, and that's with anybody. Anybody, once you have the fear of life, can protect yourself, and it's in the law books. You can protect yourself and do what you have to do to protect life.
Well, my attorney will be on shortly, and I have in my hands the California criminal jury instructions. He gave me the jury instructions on the right to self-defense or defense of another, non-homicidal. It's amazing how broad our rights really are to defend ourselves against these left-wing thugs. Really amazing. We have tremendous ability to defend ourselves. And what the problem here is that the media has made us so crazy that most people are intimidated to defend themselves.
Unfortunately, it's called Obama hypnotized the nation for 8 years.
Yes, and look at that Eric Holder, who he was always a piece of garbage. He came out and said, this is the new Democrat Party we kick. He always was a thug. Here was the chief law enforcement officer of America, who almost had a mob burn down Ferguson, Missouri, and now he's telling Americans, get ready because we're going to kick you.
Right there, he's already telling somebody to go and commit a crime. Kicking somebody, believe it or not, Michael, is aggravated harassment. That is a misdemeanor. He's already telling people.
All right, look, I know what's going on, and I want to stop the madness before it gets worse. I want to stop the mass hysteria, and I'm sending you a copy of the book. God bless you for being surviving all those years in New York on the streets. But you know something, my friend? None of us are immune to what's coming. Hillary, Holder, et al. Want violence in this country. We should avoid it at all costs. But if it comes to your doorstep, what do you do when I return?
Savage.
I have no idea why the president would invite a rapper into the White House. I think it's a political disaster. He will gain very few votes and lose an awful lot of people who have supported him. They'll vote for him, but they'll do so with great disgust. Because this rapper stands for everything that the conservative movement does not stand for. You know what I'm saying? You get how that works? But okay, different strokes for different folks, I guess. But we're talking about mob violence. You got Eric Holder saying the new Democrat Party is about kicking people. Hillary is saying you can't be civil, so she wants what, uncivility? Or let's hear Hillary Clinton in clip 3 just for a minute. I want to hear what she actually said.
You cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about. That's why I believe if we are fortunate enough to win back the House and or the Senate, that's when civility can start again.
Oh, so in other words, she's admitting, A, that they're uncivil, number one. Number two, they're going to remain uncivil and get even more uncivil unless they get power back. Well, okay, so she wants uncivility, and now the uncivility is breaking out across America because the leadership is telling them to do it. And I have suggested a number of things, including pulling nonprofit status of ACLU and all Soros-funded groups. When I said enact the Espionage Act and arrest the leadership, that will not work because we're not at war. What we need is a new Sedition Act, and I'll talk about that in the next hour. A new Sedition Act will weed out all of the Emma Goldmans, the folks like Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, Julius and Ethel Rosenbergs, all those types who are in the streets wearing bandanas over their faces and spitting or hitting your cars. They're the ones who should be charged under a new Sedition Act. And we'll look into that because either we're a nation of laws or a nation of outlaws. And right now the outlaws are running wild in the streets. And so I ask you, what are you going to do if you're sitting in a restaurant and a waiter who has those weird things on his ears, those kind of, I don't know what they are, not an earring. They're like big things in the earlobes that say, I'm really sicker than you think. Let me handle your food. One of them sees you reading one of my books or talking about Trump, or you have a MAGA hat, and he texts his friends to come and bother you in the restaurant, you and your wife, and they start screaming at you to chase you out of the restaurant like they did Ted Cruz. What do you do? What are your rights? Now, Dan Horowitz is here. Dan, are you with us? Dan should be here. I don't know where he is. I was told he's on the board, but he isn't, apparently. I guess he's not on the board, but when he's here, we'll get him up. Are you there, Dan Horowitz?
Gotcha.
Okay, until Dan, are you here, yes or no? I need to know.
I'm here. Gotcha.
All right. Now, I have a caller from New York who says, according to New York law, castle doctrine makes you have the duty to retreat in New York. Do you know anything about a castle doctrine?
There is not a duty to. There's a limited duty to retreat in New York. If you can retreat with complete safety, you do have to retreat. And there are some exceptions in New York, too. So if the crime is...
All right, let's forget New York for 1 minute. You're at a table with your wife. They come over and start screaming at you, and you get frightened. Your wife gets scared. What are your rights to self-defense according to the California criminal jury instructions that you sent me?
California and in Oregon, where this riot took place, you have a complete right to defend yourself using whatever force is necessary to put an end to the threat, which, in the circumstance you described, would mean putting the people out of commission.
You said the slightest touching can be unlawful if it's done in a rude or angry way. What does that mean?
There's something called a battery. Like a sexual battery is a common example where somebody just, grabs somebody from behind or something, and they're not physically damaged, but they don't want it, so the person gets arrested both for battery and even sexual battery. So that's what that is. You're saying,
making contact with another person,
that's unwanted,
including through his or her clothing, is enough to be convicted of battery. Now, the touching does not have to cause pain. So if the leftists start, let's say, pointing their finger at you and pushing their finger against your clothing, what could you do at that point?
You can use enough force to stop them. You can't damage them in any significant way.
Okay, what if the man is over 60 and the attacker is 25 years old? What's enough? Tell me what enough force is.
Well, he can use greater force. The older you get, the angrier the person is, the more cohorts are around who may...
Oh, great. So the old white guys now have the ability to defend themselves. Great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Now, what if you're in a car trying to retreat from the mob, and they chase you out of the restaurant, you get in your car, they surround you, and start beating on your car with sticks as they did in Oregon? What can you do then?
I believe that that's very close to a threat of deadly force, because if they get you out of the car, the same weapons that they use, the same gang mentality that they use, they're going to lead to either death or serious injury. I think you can use lethal force in that situation. And, there would be no question. If I told you that the gang of motorcycle people, were angry at a car, pulled the car over, banging on the windows, and the driver pulled out a gun and shot a bunch of them, everybody would go, good. You got the gangbangers. You got the motorcycle gang. Here we have a double standard because they're, quote, protesters.
Well, are there any cases that you've tried in this arena? I mean, that would be illustrative of our questioning?
I had a case where a guy was being rude to somebody's wife, so the man knocked the guy on his butt, and my client was then put on trial for knocking the bully on his butt, and the jury acquitted him. And later on, one of them went up to me and said, he was technically guilty, but we didn't care. The guy got what he deserved. That's not the only one I've done.
So, are you saying that a person can defend themselves?
Yeah, if themselves. You have to be calm when you do it. You have to be professional. You can't be acting out your own anger. It's got to be in the realm of what any normal person would do. Yeah,
but what if the guy, as I say, is over 60, and the mob is people in their 20s and 30s? There's no equal force to that.
No, I think the people whose cars are particularly the scene where the car is being pushed, the guy is leaning against it trying to stop it, and they're swarming the car. That one and the one where the guy got out of the car. In both those instances, I think deadly force was on the table.
Well, we're not recommending deadly force on this radio show, and I will caution everyone listening to the following. A very smart woman said to me once, do you want to know that person for the rest of your life? In other words, do you want to be right or do you want to be smart? You can be right and wind up in court for 10 years. Or you could be smart and try to get away in any way you can. I think that's what we're talking about here as well, Dan, isn't it?
Well, you know that in a fight, even if you're a trained martial artist, you will sometimes lose. So even if you're right and even if you think you can win, if you can be safe and not have to hurt somebody, that's better. But at the same time, I don't like the idea that you have to stand down and flee. There's a whole history. I mean, I was reading Stop Mass Hysteria. And you're talking about the 50s and the communist attacks and the us against them. And if you don't stand up to this type of fascism, whether it's Maxine Waters, which is the person cited at the beginning of the book, or these groups on the streets masked, mimicking terror groups or fascists of the past. What's going to happen? At some point, people have to stand up.
That's the bottom line. If we don't stand up, we'll all fall down.
Right. Now,
because they'll keep going. They'll keep going until they take over every institution in the country, as they almost have already done. The universities are gone. Most police departments have been infiltrated and taken over by left-wing fanatics, as you know, and cops who want to do the right thing are afraid to do the right thing. For example, in Portland, we saw a police officer sitting on his motorcycle doing nothing. Why do you think that was?
I think to me, he looked angry. I bet his superiors instructed him to stand down unless something actually erupted. And I think he was just sitting there going, this really stinks. Because the problem with that approach is that these attackers, these rioters, could at any time lose it and attack somebody. Or somebody getting out of their car or in their car can lose their temper or be scared. And then the violence has already happened. And then the officers respond. It's too late. Preemption is the key to preventing violence. We know that.
Well, Dan, what's the bottom line? Dan Horowitz, you're in a restaurant, and you're actually a guy who's very fair-minded and politically, I think, just somewhat liberal, by the way, which is your business. No, it's okay. You don't have to disguise yourself in any way. I know where you are in some ways, but I also know that you come from a family of heroes. That I know for a fact. Can I say anything about that or not?
You can talk about it. I thought about that today. How would my dad...
I'm so proud of his father, who was in his 90s, who fought his way from the beaches of Normandy to I think, Berlin in World War II. You also lost your uncle, didn't you?
Yes, he took himself out of a hospital bed to fight in the Battle of the Bulge and died.
So Dan comes from fighters. Dan does not like to retreat when people threaten him. I've seen him in action in the courts. So, Dan, I'm going to ask you, you're in a restaurant with me now. Okay, I'm with you, and they recognize me, and I have my book out, Stop Mass Hysteria, and we're reading from it. And some waiter sees us doing it, and he texts his friends to come and harass us. They come to the table and start yelling, screaming. What do we do?
I mean, I thought about that because you were talking about that earlier, and I was actually thinking of a particular restaurant where we were at where we worried about something like that happening. I would pick up a knife and disguise it in my hand. I would stand up because I'm not going to get hit sitting down, and I would politely ask them to leave. And if we had to, I would suggest we leave, although going out on the street is dangerous. I would look to other people in the restaurant to join in and protect us, including...
They won't do it. No, nobody will do that. They'll look the other way. I know that for a fact.
Probably, but if need be, that knife's going to go where it needs to go to protect me. I'm not going to take any physical violence from somebody who's attacking me.
Well, now you know why Dan is my attorney. He brings a napkin. He brings a napkin to a knife fight. Dan brings a napkin to a knife fight. Well, Dan, hold on. I'm going to take a couple of calls because this is not a joking question. I have a number of people calling on this issue, by the way, including defense attorneys on this stuff. Actually, can I grab this call right now while Dan is on the line? Is there a way to do that if you pull it up for me, Jim? Can you pull up line 4 out of KKOH in Reno? Go ahead. Pull up line 4. Yes, line 4, please. Go ahead quickly.
Again.
What's going on here? We'll have amateur hour here. I'll take a quick break while they figure out how to work the phones.
Savage.
Hey, if you take an atom of nitrogen and you bond it with an atom of oxygen, you create nitric oxide. It's a miracle molecule that your own body makes, which fuels your cardiovascular health, and it also helps keep you vibrant. But as we age, our bodies need help with this important process. Luckily, Super Beets by Human has harnessed the power of nutrient-rich beets to create a superfood that helps your body make more nitric oxide on its own. You see, 1 teaspoonful of Super Beets every day supports your cardiovascular health and blood pressure levels. giving you natural energy with no caffeine kick or sugar high. And we're talking real, healthy, natural energy. Joe from Austin says, Super Beets has helped me stick to my goals of watching what I eat and getting more exercise. I take Super Beets before I work out, and it's a big help with stamina. So call 800-481-0504, 800-481-0504, or SavageLovesBeets.com and find out how you can get a free 30-day supply of Super Beets and free shipping with your first purchase. You heard me right. Free, free, free. Call 800-481-0504 or SavageLovesBeets.com. Right, SavageLovesBeets.com. Savage also loves life.com. And Savage warns, stop the mobs or nation will fall. Click on the Drudge Report to see what we're talking about. We are living in an age of mass hysteria. If ever there was a book that is more necessary than this, let me know what it is. Let me know what it is, because you have Holder, you have Hillary, you have the others egging the mobs onto violence, and they're breaking out in violence, as we saw over the last few weeks. And what happens when it comes to your doorstep or your table side? What are you going to do if you're attacked by Antifa or any of these other groups? The restaurant owners are the ones in the hard place here, because they're held liable for this. Dan, are you with us? Dan Horowitz, lawyer?
I'm here.
Okay. They harass clients seated in the restaurant. Doesn't the restaurant have an obligation to keep a mob out?
I think a restaurant has an obligation, once something has happened, to intervene to the best of their ability and to control the entrance and exits to their restaurant. But it's a mob coming in. It can't be controlled by anybody. That's the problem.
Right. That's why the left uses mob tactics. Now, there's a group in Berkeley that has for years been teaching mob violence. They're the ones who taught the girls to put pipes on their arms during protests. I know who they are. I know their names. I know where they work. I know what they're all about. I know who funds them. Why can't Trump simply have the IRS pull the IRS nonprofit status from these groups? That would take a lot of the wind out of their sails, Dan. That's my opinion. In other words, all of these groups are funded by somebody, and a lot of this somebody is one man, a money trader who Jesus warned us about, trading money in the back of the temple. Jesus tried to warn us about people like him, and he's using his ill-begotten gains to fund anti-Americanism because he wants the country destroyed. He wants a worldwide socialist order. He says so.
You know, you've hit on something that's far deeper than just self-defense or not self-defense. I think these Antifa people need to read not Stop Mass Hysteria, because they'll just burn it. They should read God, Faith, and Reason that you wrote and get some insight into what the real human condition is, because they have no sense of what a real working person goes through raising a family. They have an ideology in their head which is imposed from the outside.
But Dan, the communist mobs were the same. And 100 million people died because they were not stopped first. If Hitler had been stopped at Munich, there would not have been a Holocaust. And if Antifa is not stopped, there will be a Holocaust in this country.
Savage. Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. Now, here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
We have a Klansman who's walking around saying threatening things to African Americans, drawing guns. He's just like that Klansman, that the head of the Klan that occupies the White House. He's not only a groper of women, he's a murderer. And I wouldn't vote for a Republican if God came down and sit them in the middle of me. I hate and despise them, and I hope they go down and burn in hell.
There's your C-SPAN, a government-funded agency permitting a hater to say that Trump is a murderer now and a head of the Ku Klux Klan. Eric Holder saying when they go low, we kick them. Hillary saying we can't be civil, we need a civil war, and others. And Antifa are their shock troops in the streets, funded by George Soros and other secretive organizations undermining the fabric of America. And on the Savage Nation today, we're talking about what are you going to do when they come to you? What you going to do when they come for you? What you going to do when they harass you in a restaurant? What you going to do when they surround your car and start beating on your hood with a pipe? What are your rights? What are your rights? Let's say all of us are peace-loving and we want to retreat and be left alone to run our lives. They don't want you to run your life. What did they scream at Ted Cruz? You're not going to be comfortable. You're not going to be comfortable. You're not. Do you understand what the left is doing? They're trying to make the entire middle class very uncomfortable. So what happens when you're surrounded and you're intimidated and you're frightened? What can you do to fight back? Now, there are other things that should be done. Instead of inviting a rapper into the White House, you ought to invite some legal minds into the White House to focus on pulling the 501c3 status of all of these groups that are violating their nonprofit status. And when you defund them, you defang them. You defund them, you defang them. Here's a little rap song. You defund, you defang, you defund, you defang. Defang by defund, defund, defang. I defund, I defang, I defund, defang. But I'm not in the White House. I'm on the Savage Nation. Let's go to some callers who have a little more wisdom than some of the people in government. KQH in Reno, Nevada, one of my favorite stations, by the way. Mike on line 5. Let me hit the right button here. Mike on line 5. Go ahead. I understand, Mike, you're a defense attorney?
Correct. Yes, Dr. Savage. I'm a defense attorney here in Reno, Nevada.
It says you recently defended a client confronted by left-wingers. What was the situation, Mike?
My client was approached by a violent group of people, 3 gentlemen in a restaurant here in Reno, Nevada, about a month ago, for wearing a MAGA hat. And the gentleman approached his table with his wife and children at the table and proceeded to tell my client that he needed to remove his hat because he was in a restaurant full of people that didn't care for his hat. My client is ex-military. He respectfully requested the gentleman to leave him alone and calmly step away from his table before he had to get violent. The gentleman said, "Take off the hat or I will remove the hat for you," and then slapped my client's hat off of his head. So, all
right. What happened next?
Needless to say, my client was forced to, as his children and wife were then crying hysterically as 2 other gentlemen stood in front of their seats, blocking them from standing up. My client stood up and physically defended his presence by taking, I would say, brutal action to physically defend his wife and children from being harmed. And
So this was one man with a wife and children surrounded by how many punks?
3.
Did he punch one of them, hit them, break their arms, hit them with a chair? What did he do?
Well, I guess without mentioning names, I'm free to disclose any of that information. He used a plate and a fork in his fists and feet and put one of them through a window and knocked the other 2 unconscious.
Wow, I guess it ruined that night's bacchanalia for them. All right, so he was arrested. Your client was arrested, no doubt. What happened next?
My client was arrested. He was taken to jail, and he was charged with attempted murder at first and then dropped down to assault 1 x 3.
He was arrested for defending his family. That's beautiful in Reno, Nevada. So you're his defense attorney. What happened?
So it made it to pretrial. The victims / attackers showed up to court with their neck braces and fake body braces and things on parts of their body that weren't even.
And where was their shyster lawyer from? They flew him in from where? San Francisco or New York?
Believe it or not, the local district attorney court prosecutor actually picked up the charges.
All right. So what happened next?
So the judge let it go all the way to pretrial, took a separate side meeting in the back room, and basically informed the prosecutor that he was disgraced to have that prosecutor in his courtroom, that he even had the audacity to pick up the charges. He informed the prosecutor that he wasn't born yesterday, that he was not stupid, and that the prosecutor should be ashamed of himself for trying to defend some kind of outlandish, defense for the attackers. And it turned out to pretty much the attackers were just trying to secure some kind of medical bill payment.
Well, what happened? How did it resolve?
It resolved in the judge said, I will not allow you to further pursue criminal action against my client, and he threw it out of court. He told the district attorney that he needed to proceed to charges dropped, no charges filed, and it was a not guilty verdict.
All right. It sounds like it ended well. Meanwhile, this family of law-abiding citizens was traumatized for life. The children will never forget what these bastards did to their family. They were assaulted. They were intimidated. In fact, there was a kidnapping charge as well. By intimidating that wife and children, they committed kidnapping. As far as Michael Savage, prosecutor, I would prosecute them right now for kidnapping the family. Why can they not be charged now?
So I'm so glad to talk to somebody on the radio that still has a brain, and that is exactly where we're at right now. They are countering with a civil suit, so we are countering with a kidnapping suit.
Is there any way people listening now? Who's paying for this poor man's defense?
Well, that's now. So we are in the middle of trying to counter also with them having to pay for his now going into the civil suit.
All right. Here's what I'm going to do for you and your client right now. We're going to raise money for his defense on this show. I've done it for cops unfairly accused. I've done it for Marines in Haditha, Iraq. I've done it for many people who were innocent in war zones. Now we're in a war zone in America. If you will do the following, like get together a PayPal site for him, or under your name for him, however you want to do it, and send it to my producer. I'll put it on michaelsavage.com on my social media, and we'll raise money for him. I did it for a taxi driver in New York about 2 months ago who lost his ride for a day because he was running my show in his car, and the Lyft driver, they took him off the streets for I don't know how long, a day or a week, and we raised money for him. He made back his whole and then some. How much money are you going to need to defend this poor ex-military man and his family?
Well, he's sitting at about a $4,000 bill right now, but we are definitely helping him out with that. Well,
no, I understand that's not going to be $4,000 is not going to be enough. I want to achieve at least $25,000 for this man, and no, I'm going to get there because I want to see those punks prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I'd like to see them in jail for kidnapping that family.
Absolutely. That's where.
And I'll tell you something else. If I raise enough money, I may try to bring another attorney in to help you in prosecuting them. The only thing that's going to stop these people is money and law, and we have more of it than they do. It's that simple.
That's correct.
All right. So I'm going to get off the phone, and we're going to get your name. You could give it on the air if you want, but I'd be better with a PayPal account. Send it to me, and I'll read it on the show later. Could you do that, Jim? Please get the gentleman's email address. Get it up there, some PayPal thing, and we'll get that going. Or I'll put it up on my site through Karen. Karen, if you're listening to the show, put up a PayPal for the soldier who was attacked in Reno, Nevada for his legal defense fund. You could even call it Soldier Legal Defense Fund, and we'll raise as much money as we can. And I'll start the donations. The minute it's up, I'm going to donate something right off the bat from my book, period. I'll put my money where my mouth is. Stop Mass Hysteria. I'll take immediately. I'm going to donate money to this guy. I want to see these punks go to jail. And I want to see them lose everything that they might have, which is probably nothing but a bicycle they stole from a kid somewhere. All right, there's more. We got people calling from around America on the issue of left-wing violence being fomented by numerous left-wing luminaries. I don't have to mention their name during every break. And I am going to stick to my original one-liner, which was so succinctly stated on the Drudge Report this morning. Stated better than I, actually. I don't know who wrote that headline. But it was great to wake up to it because it summarized the whole book. I don't know if it's still there. I hope it is here. Savage warns, stop the mobs or nation will fall. Savage warns, stop the mobs or nation will fall. We are living in extremely dangerous times. That is the truth, and now you have to understand what's going on. Our entire way of life is being threatened by front groups of individuals who have been out to destroy America for a very long time. They think their time has come. We're going to show them, their time has gone. I'll be right back.
Savage.
you have to understand that the vermin who are doing this are listening to this show right now. Many of the leaders are listening to the show, hear what you're saying, to alter their tactics. I know how the game works. What they do is attack you, you defend yourself, and they scream for the police. That's how cowards work. They start to scream, he hit me, he hit me. Standard operating procedure of cowards. They set your car on fire, and then they say that you set your car on fire. They're doing this on purpose, aiming at Republicans, conservatives, in order to have you react so that they can then point their finger at you as the bad guys, and then they can provoke a civil war as well. Remember what their aim is, civil war. They literally remember the 60s, H. Rap Brown, burn, baby, burn. Burn, baby, burn is what they want. They want a whole city to go up in smoke. They don't just want to attack a white man in a car in Oregon. They want a city to go up in smoke. And so be very careful. Don't get caught up in this if you can avoid it. Avoid them at all costs. But I've had an attorney on, Dan Horowitz, an hour ago. We had another attorney on who just defended a soldier, ex-military, who was sitting in a restaurant in Reno, Nevada, if you missed it, with his wife and children, when three punks of the type that you know, the university slime, came up and started harassing the whole family and made his children cry. And this man said, I'm warning you to get away from the table. And they wouldn't. And he broke plates on their head, or whatever he had to do. One of them wound up being thrown through. Sorry, can't help but laughing. One went through a plate glass window. The others, I guess, scurried off to a session on how to provoke Republicans. And they then he got arrested because the prosecutor's another low-life piece of crap up there, obviously. He arrested the soldier, had the soldier arrested. They came into court, the vermin, in body braces, making believe they were so violent, and the judge threw the case out the window. So now they're charging him with other crimes, and his lawyer's trying to countercharge them with kidnapping, which is what I saw immediately, and we're trying to raise money for him. But we have another caller now named Rudy Peters on KSFO. Rudy, you are a congressional candidate in which district?
The 15th.
Okay, what happened to you in short?
So I don't know. It was, you probably heard about it. Back, I think, in September 11th, I was at the Castro Valley Street Fair Fall Festival when the gentleman came up and attacked my booth, and we got in a scuffle. He pulled out a switchblade knife, which, thank God, it malfunctioned, and screaming out, he's going to kill me.
Well, how did it end?
Well, it ended finally. Somebody spoke up, screamed. One of the stands. If you can imagine a street fair, it was full of family and kids and a lot.
Did the police intervene on your behalf?
Oh, they did. So, after he couldn't get the knife, he was screaming with the knife, trying to get the switchblade to come out. It malfunctioned. Finally, somebody made a ruckus and screamed, and he took off. I went and contacted the Alameda County Sheriff's Department. They did a phenomenal job. They had him detained and arrested within, a couple minutes.
All right. Was he charged with a crime?
He was. There's an outstanding felony. I think one of them is terrorist charges. He's still going through some of the court system and preliminary hearings.
And who's defending him, the ACLU?
No, he's actually, I do not know his lawyer's name. No, it's a private lawyer. And the sad thing about it when it happened, Doc, is I thought maybe, it started out by this gentleman walking by screaming to the top of his lungs, F you, Donald Trump, F you, Donald Trump. And we had just thought I was there with another assembly candidate, Joe Gertcher, the individual. We thought he was just drunk and just a loudmouth, and he kind of proceeded like he was going to walk by. Well, then he turns and bum rushes our table. We had, if you can imagine, like a gazebo with a...
Rudy, let me ask you, what did this assailant look like?
35 years old. I think somebody said he's from Middle Eastern descent. I'm not sure. I know his parents are here, and I don't know whether he's an American citizen or not. He's actually part of the Castro Valley Democratic Club. Set down,
interesting.
Which had a booth actually at the fair, probably 6 to 8 booths down from ours.
Was Nancy Pelosi outspoken defending him after the event?
No, that's actually the sad part about it, Doc. What I can't get my hands around it. People call it an act of violence. Really, it was an act of hate. I mean, my opponent, Eric Swalwell, he did say violence is not how we settle political disputes, but this, again, was not an act of violence as much as an act of hate. And
it's a hate crime to pull out a knife on you, especially if the races are different. It's clearly a hate crime. Rudy Peters, best of luck in your campaign, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. But someone's asking this, doesn't wearing a mask make crime worse? When did it become legal to wear masks in the street? You don't know how that works. The liberals said that wearing a full face cover, meaning a burqa, whatever they call it, while getting a picture for a driver's license was not illegal. You could look like the Lone Ranger in Florida if you want to get a driver's license. Doesn't matter what your face looks like. You can go there looking like the Lone Ranger. Now what happens? Savage warns, stop the mobs or nation will fall. Stop mass hysteria. If we're not living through mass hysteria, what are we living through?
Savage.
Welcome back to the Savage Nation. Let's see, what's the news? San Francisco school board president scraps the Pledge of Allegiance and said they read a poem by an ex-prostitute, an all-around anti-American, anti-male, anti-family Maya Angelou. That's the city I live in. So the human feces in the streets of San Francisco, which is horrible, is actually a reflection of the political class in San Francisco. Do you understand sometimes life imitates art and art imitates life? Well, in this case, merit imitates politics. Maybe that's a little too rich for the room. This Monday, get tickets to the movie Mad Maxine Doesn't Want You to See. The American Mirror presents Dummycrats. And I think on Monday we're going to have them on. We're going to have the Diamond and Silk on Monday. People love them on the show. They want them back. So Monday we'll have them back for their new movie. Book review, Common Sense in a Country That's Trying Not to Have Any. Let's see. Savage Army, give a copy to your local police station if they will take it. I don't know if they're allowed to take the book. So give it to a patrolman on the beat. Or if there's a police car, someone give them a copy of the book. Give your book away. But we're talking about the violence in the streets today. I think it's a very important topic and what you can do if they come for you. That's the whole thing. You say, okay, let's take some callers and see what you have to say. KSFO, Jeff, line 2, please make your point. Go ahead, please.
Hey, Dr. Savage, 20-year veteran, retired, San Diego area. I would say just be very cognizant. I'm not saying sit back and take the abuse from these people, but just be cognizant of your jurisdiction as far as the political standing of the local DA, how he or she feels, because, you have on-duty cops that are using force that are getting a lot of rhetoric back. So just be cognizant on, are you in a friendly area?
No, in San Francisco, there is no law. It's a law of the jungle, and only the left wing rules in this city. That's why bums are allowed to crap in the street with impunity. And therefore, it's a terrible city to be assaulted in by one of these vermin, because you will lose in this filthy city, especially with the psycho sheriff and prosecutors in this city.
You understand my point, then?
Of course I do. Well, this is not going to happen to you in Montana. Where do you think it's going to happen to you? It's going to happen to you where the filth have taken over the legal system. Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, San Francisco, Long Beach, California, San Diego, California. All the cities that have been infiltrated and dominated by these thugs with law degrees is a terrible place to have to defend yourself. That's what you're saying. We all would love to see the video of the soldier who gave them fair warning and then threw one of them through a plate glass window. Man, would I like to find that online. That would be a beauty. That would be a beauty. But remember the movie with the man I love so much, Robert De Niro? What was that? Where he harasses the family, and then he comes to court after the guy, played by Gregory Peck, hires cops, ex-cops to defend them, and this Robert De Niro character kills them all. And then one of them had beat him up partly, and he comes to court with a full body cast to make believe he was injured, and his face is all bruised up. That's what they try to do to this poor this soldier up in Reno. This is how these ambulance chaser lawyers work. And I'm afraid this is going to get much, much worse. But I want to leave you with a very important thought on this topic before we move on. Avoid interchange at all costs. Just avoid it at all costs. Terrible. Kanye West reveals pointless iPhone code during White House meeting. Why he would have a deranged, dirty-mouthed individual like this at the resolution desk is so heartbreaking. It's unbelievable to me. I tell you the truth, I think this advice is not coming from the president. I can pretty much tell you I know who advised this, but I'm not going to do it at the risk of alienating even more people in the inner circle. This was the worst public relations disaster for Trump with his base I've ever seen. And it's a result of Fox News taking over the West Wing. It's as simple as that. Do you remember how we criticized the coziness between Bill Clinton and the media? Remember how we criticized Obama and the friendliness of the media? And we were right to do so. When the media becomes owned by a president, it's not a reliable source. And when you see every day a shout out to another Fox News host, as good as they may be, there's something very inappropriate about this cozy relationship between the president we love so much and one single news channel. It's not good. It's not good for anybody. It's not good for democracy, for this cozy relationship. Something odd happened at a rally the other night that my producer Jim caught. The president gave a speech. Where was it? In Iowa, Jim? Where was this? Jim's on the phone right now trying to talk to wonderful. I think it was in Iowa, right? And the president was giving a speech. And at the end, he called out some of the Fox hosts. He says, oh, there's Laura. She's great. And he's right. And he pointed out some other Fox hosts, and he says, this one's great. You love Tucker. You love this one. People started to scream in the crowd, savage, 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 savage. But because the ex-Fox News director who was fired and found a new job, a new gig as the tyrant of the West Wing, Bill Shine, is now in charge. He was the one who blocked me from Fox News all those years. He didn't think it was appropriate to shout my name out. It's okay. Apparently, the people in the audience are not that stupid. They do believe that there are people who are not on television who have some value in this country. In the media, I'm one of them. So thanks to all of you. And I suggest the next time you go to a Trump rally, shout out Savage. The president still likes me. It's just that he doesn't understand that he can no longer simply promote Fox News hosts to the exclusion of everybody else. And I'm not alone in this. We all see this. So what are you going to do when they come for you? Okay, KKOH, we have some advice here. People are calling in with advice, what they would do. KKOH, line 5, go ahead. Lee, what would you do if you're attacked by these vermin?
I'd use technology. Turn my phone on. Record them. Have everybody.
Okay, and what if they grab your phone and throw it in the soup?
Hopefully you've got other people at the table that've got their phone on, too.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is certainly something the left does at every rally, every riot that they induce. They're all running around with their iPhones. They're all little movie makers, every one of them, looking to catch a cop trying to defend somebody. So you're saying turn the tables on them and video them?
Yeah, exactly. Get their faces. At least get their faces. Even if they throw the phone in the water, you can still recover that stuff.
All right, that's one piece of advice. WXLM in Connecticut. John, what do you advise we do when the mob comes for you?
Hi, what I do is whenever I go to a restaurant, I always make sure I face the door, see who's coming in as far as the crowd goes. And if I saw a crowd coming in, I would get on the phone, call the police, and I'd probably tell the police there's a crowd coming in. I think I saw somebody with a gun, and I would think the police would show up. But I've been in the martial arts for 49 years, and
wait, you've been in what?
I've been in the martial arts for 49 years.
I thought you said you'd been in the mob for 49 years. Okay, go ahead.
No, not the mob. So I know how to defend myself. I've actually had people in my face threatening me, but I always find when you stand up to a bully, they back down. But in the case of a mob, I would try to pinpoint who the leader was, who seemed to be the strongest one. They have like a wolf pack mentality. You take the leader, and the rest will fold. I've experienced it at least 3 times in my life where I had more than one person trying to attack me, and the minute I took out the bigger guy, or the one that I thought was the leader, it ended it.
Didn't you like the call from the lawyer in Reno about the soldier who was surrounded by this mob of left-wingers and he threw one of them through a plate glass window? Didn't you feel good hearing that?
I absolutely loved it because he's for his right to protect himself. But I would also stand up. You don't want to sit down. You want to stand up. I would hit the person in the shin because that drops their thought. Their brain goes down to their shin and hit the person in the eye.
Well, Eric Holder said that when they go low, we kick them. So you're actually just responding to Eric Holder's threats.
Well, I would love to talk to Mr. Holder about that because I don't think he has the guts to kick me.
Well, we're not trying to start. We're trying to stop violence in the country. Remember, my book title is not mass hysteria. It's Stop Mass Hysteria. I'm like, my audience understands this is a book of history, and I believe that unless we damp it all down, it's going to get much worse and very bad for all of us. And when you have Hillary Clinton and Eric Holder, the former chief law enforcer of America, saying basically commit violence, it's going to get worse because what they're doing is giving a green light to these mobs. That's what they're doing. It's mob mentality and mob violence, and they're encouraging them.
Well, I had somebody in my face in a work parking lot screaming at me, telling me, it's your fault, it's your fault. And I'm assuming it was my fault because I had voted for Trump, and he knew I voted for Trump. I was standing there doing absolutely nothing, not to talk to anybody. There's a whole crowd around me. And this guy got within 1 inch of my face screaming at me, at which point I asked him to back up nicely. And when he didn't, I yelled it, and it caught him off guard for a second, and he backed up. And
so you use voice command like he was a dog, in other words.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of them are very intimidated by a man who will stand up to them with a loud voice. There's no question.
Well,
I've seen them react like dogs myself.
Your body projection also is a powerful weapon. If you stand up and your shoulders are slumped and your hands are down, you look intimidated. However, if you stand up, you've got your shoulders back, and you stare at the person, they start to think twice about who they are approaching. But the other thing is...
Well, there's another answer to this problem, which is Swanson TV dinners.
But you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to. The other thing, when I go in a restaurant, I always look to see where the nearest exits are. So if I saw a crowd in there, I thought this could be...
Well, you're my kind of guy. I like it. You have the same paranoid view of the world that I do, and I've never been wrong yet.
Thank you. That's the kind
of... No, I love Henry Kissinger's statement when even paranoiacs have enemies. You know, I mean, the truth is, anyone of action understands what you are saying to be 1,000% correct. I mean, if I go in a restaurant, I truthfully always sit with my back to a wall. I have done that for 30 years. Why? Because it's a safer place to be. You want someone to get behind you?
My wife knows when we go into a restaurant which seat I'm going to take. She automatically knows that I'm going to be facing out so I can see who comes in.
Where are you calling from, Connecticut?
Yes, Groton, Connecticut, actually.
Groton, near the old submarine base, right? Oh no, that's New London. You're near the guy with the saltine crackers, the fisherman suit. All right, I'm going to send you a copy of Stop Mass Hysteria. It's very good to stop mass hysteria. Back in a minute.
Savage.
Before we get back to politics, I want to talk about sleeping. Without good sleep, man, I couldn't do this show, and that's why I do use a Casper mattress. It really works. And you could switch to a Casper so easily. It's the best quality at the best price, and you will sleep cool and comfortable every night because they make it with the right pressure relief. And it comes to your door for free in a small How They Do It box. Casper will even pick it up, and if you don't love it, they'll pick it up, refund you everything. Its engineering, its packaging, letting you try it for 100 nights. And that's why Casper has over 35,000 five-star reviews of all their products across Google, Amazon, Casper. And the best way to test the mattress to see if this is true is try it for free in your own house. So put Casper to the test. 100 nights now, risk-free. Just go to Casper.com, code SAVAGE, and you'll get $50 towards the purchase of select mattresses. Once again, Casper.com, code SAVAGE. You're going to get $50 off the purchase of select mattresses. Casper.com. Terms and conditions apply. So a rapper is in the White House at the Oval Office, a man who I have many, many words for rappers. None of them are good. But it ends with him saying, I love Hillary in the Oval Office. And when it was over, President Trump astonishingly said that West could one day fill his shoes as commander-in-chief. Could very well be, Trump said, when asked if West could run for president. Only after 2024, West responded. I rest my case. Politics and I don't really get along. Yeah. Okay. If you have to bring those kind of people into the Oval Office to get votes, you can see why I stay behind the microphone. Just on a personal note, I know many of you love Little Teddy, the mascot of the Savage Nation. I know I shouldn't tell you anything about this, and you'll think I'm just appealing for your sympathy. But, I think I'm obliged to tell you he's very, very sick. He doesn't want to get up. He coughs at night, and I've tried a lot of stuff. He has very poor appetite. He'll eat at night, but not during the day. He's listless. He doesn't want to play. It's been going on for months. And I've had enough dogs to tell you I know all the symptoms and signs of the splayed legs and the coughing and the listlessness. And it's the way of all, flesh. We see ourselves in our little guys. And it's just been horrible. Just horrible. Just horrible. There's no need to call with advice because there's no advice that can be given at the end of a long life. He's 15 years old, and he's been my best friend here on the air for so long. I don't know. I'm never going to get another one. I'll tell you that right now. Just no more of this. No more of this. Once. How many times can I go through this? So I'm trying my best. I'm giving him all the CoQ I can. And it pulled him back from the brink a year ago. The doctor put him on some kind of, diuretic to remove the choking. He's choking on his own phlegm, his own fluids, because when he starts to cough in the morning and choke, it's because his heart valves are leaking and the fluid's getting back into his throat. The sound is overwhelming. It's like a death rattle. And the part that bothers me the most is it was like my father, after his heart attack, had heart failure in the hospital. That's the sound that's getting to me. But anyway, I'm going to stick with the little guy to the end. I'm not going to let him suffer, I'll tell you that. So I'm going through that. I'm going through the media ban. I'm going through the greatest stress of my life. And you know what? I love every minute of it. You know why? Therefore, choose life.
Michael Savage, a host like no other.